one of the things that I have to give you a lot of credit for is that you put yourself out there a lot. You really have, no worries, no concerns. You kind of are so open with everyone about your disability, about your upbringing, everything. I wanted to
Mhm.
ask you, were you at any point ever trepidatious about opening up to everyone the way you have?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of internal growth that made me come to the point where I was comfortable sharing the stuff that I do. Um, I think for me, one of the biggest turning points was when I felt compelled to share the first video of me walking on social media, which was really big for me because I had started doing a little bit of blogging on the side and I was writing like descriptions of how I walk so the reader can like understand how cerebral palsy affects me. And then I just had this light bulb moment one day and I'm like, you know, social media gives me the tools to use visuals instead of writing it, like I need to show it. And then once I had that kind of click within me and felt comfortable, like no matter what feedback I'd get, because obviously, you get negative comments and stuff. But once I became comfortable and open to doing that, I just felt kind of a shift. And since then, I've just, been continuing to share my story, which has been fun.
Absolutely. And one thing that I think, and you've mentioned this before in your post and your stories, is that you do everything pretty much. Like if you run, you kayak, you hang out with your friends, you go to concerts, you do all these things.
Mhm.
There's very little that you can't do.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that that also had to do a lot with your upbringing and how your family also tackled your
Mhm.
disability. How did your family kind of make sure that you also had that independence?
Yeah, I definitely attribute a lot of how my mindset is now with, trying new things and getting myself out there despite my disability, to my parents and my upbringing. So my parents, especially my mom, have always been like I remember my grandparents telling me, they would always want to come over to the house and help me with every little thing. And my mom would have to sit them down and be like, no, Chelsea can do it on her own. Obviously, there's some things like I just naturally needed help with, but they wanted to just start getting me used to doing things for myself. And I think from then I kind of spiraled into all the other aspects of my life, when I started going to school and I was with, other little kids that weren't have never been exposed to somebody with a disability. So if they started kind of making weird comments towards me, my initial reaction was, "Oh, I'm different. Like it's fine. Like, but I can still do this stuff." And then, I think my sister had a big part of it where she, we have a very strong relationship, but we're siblings at the end of the day. She could knock me over and it's not the end of the world. Like I push her right back. But having that normal like sibling rivalry, I think also contributed it to because it made me feel like I'm just a normal person.
I think that's so important is to not limit people just because of a disability that they have, not to limit them.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think sometimes, in life in general, not just for those who have disabilities, you bump into people who can sometimes be very ignorant and can kind
Mhm.
of, see things just in a very idiotic way.
Yeah.
And sometimes the comments made from ignorant people can lead to someone kind of lacking confidence or feeling down on themselves. How do you make sure that whenever you do get an ignorant comment or something thrown your way like that, how do you kind of keep yourself leveled and not let that kind of hurt your confidence?
That's a good question. So I think a lot of it, as I said before, has to do with me being comfortable in my own story to share it. And beyond that, obviously I get comments that kind of sometimes they take me back and I'm reading it and I'm like, do I spend time and energy going back to this person to, I don't know, just respond to whatever they're saying, or do I just let it slide? Most of the time, I just try not to put energy into that. I try to focus on all of the positive energy that comes my way and all of the positive messages I get. If I do get a negative comment that seems more of not being uneducated, but someone who hasn't been exposed to someone with a disability before, I do like to take the time to respond and educate them if I feel they're open to that kind of discussion. But if it is just like, a troll or someone who you could tell in the specific comment if they're not open to learning, they're not open to hearing my perspective, they're just open, they just want to share what they have to share and move on. I try to just not put thought or energy into it because I don't want it to bring me down.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually a positive way to kind of look at it in general. Is figuring out whether or not that certain comment or that certain thing that that person said even deserves your energy. I think in
Yeah.
general. Now, in your opinion, what's maybe one of the biggest misconceptions that people have whenever they come across someone that may be a little different?
I think, in my experience, it's having not being able to do things or not being able to speak for myself. So I get it all the time, whether it be like through online people commenting like, "Oh, she can do great," or "She can do it," when they're talking to me. But it also happens in real life. For example, when I'm at a restaurant with friends or family, a lot of the time people they like the waiter or waitress, they look at the people I'm with to order for me, when just because I walk differently doesn't mean I can't make my own decisions and order for myself. And I just think little things like that. Obviously there's people with disabilities who do need more assistance, but I think the initial reaction of people feeling like people with disabilities can't do something is one of the things that I guess upsets me the most.
And then when you do deal with that, right, and you do come across that, how do you kind of, because I can only imagine, right? Like it can sometimes get pretty annoying, sometimes having to deal with that on a repetitive basis. How do you
Yeah.
kind of, I guess, politely be like, hey, no, you know what, to the waiter, I can order for myself, or you know what, don't worry, I can do this by myself. How do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, just inserting myself in, and I feel, a lot of the time, as surprising as it seems, because, sitting here, you can't tell I have a disability. But when I do open my mouth and start to stand up for myself, I get a lot of kind of like looks
Hmm.
or people being taken back. And it's hard for people to just comprehend that somebody with a disability can have a productive conversation, so I try not to be rude. I know a lot of it has to do with not being exposed to somebody with a disability, so I try to approach it, in a lighthearted way. I usually, again, like I said before with the comments, like if I could tell somebody's open to being educated, I'll kind of playfully incorporate that into my responses. And oh, I have cerebral palsy, but I can still do X, Y, and Z.
Okay. And
Yeah.
another thing that I did want to talk to you about is that, you all, again, just talking to you now, you're very positive, you're very kind of happy all the time. You have this great smile all the time.
Thank
And
you.
I, and I wanted to ask you, like, you've been spreading this positivity on your Instagram, and your Instagram has been growing. Your following has been growing more and more. I remember when I first bumped into your page months ago, and then I compared to what it's like now, and I'm like, wow, this page is growing.
Yeah.
Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, anticipate that your page in specific would blow up the way that it has?
Absolutely not. And all the conversations I've been having with my family and friends, I am so humbled. I did not expect this whatsoever. You can't plan for something like this. And I think right now I'm in this weird space where I'm just trying to catch up to it all and figure out how to navigate it because I don't know. I'm not used to this. But no, I had no idea this would happen. Not to even say it was my intention that it would happen. I don't know what my intention was when I started sharing my story. It was just I kind of was like, oh, like I feel like I need to start sharing it for the people I know so they like have a better understanding of me. And the way it's taken off the past couple months and the amount of people I've been able to meet and connect with and relate to, it's not anything I ever thought would happen, but it's been incredible.
And quick question. What has been kind of maybe the wildest experience that you've gotten from now your Instagram fame, so to speak?
I think connecting with people from all over the world, as cliche as that sounds, I did not realize how many people out there had cerebral palsy in general. I'm getting so many people that are commenting they relate to me. They thought they were the only ones that experienced what I do. And when I read that, it's vice versa. I'm putting out my story, but I don't really surround myself with people with disabilities. The majority of the people in my life beyond this, online community that I've met don't have a disability. So I just connecting with people, exchanging stories, knowing that I'm not alone going through this, and same for the people that are, tuning into my story, whether they have a disability or not. I hope that it's helping change perspectives and have it, creating more openness and acceptance.
And I think it has because even speaking for myself, right? Like growing up, I didn't, grow up with people who had disabilities or what have you. So seeing kind of your experience and seeing kind of the comments that you have and seeing the impact that you're having on people, even on your live. Like I'll
Mhm.
go into your live and I'll see the questions that people are sending and all these things, and I'm like, you're really having this really positive impact on people. And
Mhm.
I wanted to know, like, do you have kind of like I know that you weren't anticipating for you to kind of have this fame,
Yeah.
but in your opinion, do you kind of have like an end goal or things that you kind of are planning in the future in regards to your outreach?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about recently, just because it's not that it's been handed with to me, but I've just had to think about it. Um, but I think I don't have a specific end goal. I just want to continue being authentic, continue being me, incorporating my story and other people's stories, the people around me, just in a fun, lighthearted way, and continue these conversations that people think need to be uncomfortable, but they don't. They can be comfortable conversations. In terms of my content, I just want to continue to make sure it's true to me. It's stuff that, if I am incorporating products within, it's just stuff that aligns with my life regularly anyway. Um, so just continuing to be me and see what happens. Honestly, I don't have a specific plan.
Well, I think in general, as long as you're kind of having this positive impact on people, I think you're succeeding. Honestly,
Thank you.
I think it really has like a ripple effect where I think if you help someone understand something better, that person can help someone else. So I think your impact is actually, I think, maybe even bigger than I think it may seem on Instagram.
Yeah.
Um, Now, random question, because I know since we're during this pandemic and it's kind of crazy and
Yeah.
we're kind of limited with social interactions, but has anyone kind of recognized you on the street just from Instagram?
No. I
Right.
mean, granted, I haven't really been out. I've been, pretty much hunkering down for the most part, besides seeing, my close friends and family. But yeah, I can't say I've had that happen to me yet.
I think it's inevitable, and I want to know, like, eventually when that does happen, what that's gonna feel like. Because I think it must be
Yeah.
kind of like a pinch me moment when that would happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, last thing, talking about the impact that you had on people and the messages that you've been receiving, is there one message in particular that really still resonates with you today that you've received from someone who follows you?
Yeah, there's definitely a ton, but there was one specific that, I just to touch on the theme. Basically, the person was going through some depression and anxiety, and they were sharing that from seeing my post, it kind of helped push them to overcome it, at least in that week where they like really needed that extra boost. And how it helped them do something that they were putting off for a long time. And, the first time I read that, I was just really taken back, and I was like, wow, like somebody that is a complete stranger to me, I was able to help in such a positive way, because I'm really passionate about mental health and stuff like that. So to have a message like that where I was able to help someone in that way, it was such a rewarding and humbling experience. So that definitely sticks out there for me.
Absolutely. And what was your degree in
Communication.
communications. So then,
Yeah.
in what area or where do you kind of? Because again, it's kind of crazy how your Instagram career is kind of maybe shifting you now in a completely different direction that you weren't expecting. But
Yeah.
prior to that, what was kind of like your how did you kind of envision your future career wise? What were you kind of focusing on?
So I work in public relations now. I have been since I graduated from college in 2015, so I've been on the PR track. But I've always envisioned myself doing some kind of motivational speaking. I always envisioned that being something later in my career, after I had an established career, I saved money up and then I could take the risk of doing what I'm really passionate about. So I am really passionate about PR too. I think there's an art to communication that I love, but I think that as this naturally progresses, it could be something that I start to do a little bit sooner than I anticipated, when I was like 50, 60 doing, and now through social media, it's more easily attainable. And especially with all the virtual stuff going on, I think, it's something I can try to explore a little bit.
Absolutely, and like I can definitely see you doing like a TED talk or something like that for sure. Like if you ever
Yeah.
get to that point, I would love to see that because I think you
Oh,
actually do that really well.
yeah.
Now,
See?
I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen.
Yeah.
Now, last thing before I let you go, if there's, what's a way that maybe we those who maybe those who have disabilities, and those who don't, what would be your best piece of advice just for us to kind of understand one another better?
Just listening. I think that's such an important aspect of life that a lot of people take for granted and they don't proactively do. I think in my life, a lot of the frustrations I had, whether it was disability related or not disability related, it just came down to the simple fact is I felt like I wasn't being heard, or I felt like somebody wasn't taking the time to just sit and listen to what I had to say. And now that's all I ask really, like with everything crazy on in the world, whether it's me, somebody who's similar to you, whether it's someone who's different from you, just having compassion and listening to their 2 cents and their story, and I think it could go such a long way.
Absolutely. Well, again, Chelsea,
Mhm.
thank you so much for your time. Thank you for making time, especially during the holidays. I think this interview is going to impact a lot of people, so I thank you for that. And
Okay.
I wish you the best. I think 2021 is going to be a big year for you for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm so happy we were able to connect, so thank you again.